So, by the way, do you know what you're here for, Lisa?
Step up and stand out, but that's all I had on my calendar.
Okay, well, okay, so you're here. You don't even know what I'm going to be teaching you today. Okay, let's see. So
I
today
missed
we're
that
going to.
note.
Well, actually, this is I have a listing. Now what?
Yes, I have a listing. There we go.
But I can teach anything since it's just you, whatever you want to learn about. But so yeah, I have a listing. Now what? And you know, again, it's one of those things where a lot of many times, you know, you just like I take things for granted. People take things for granted. It's like when I train or when I mentor, which I don't do anymore, and this is why, because I just have been doing this so long. It's autopilot for me, and there's a lot of details that can get missed, right? So I think one of the last classes, I don't remember if you were on it, but it was like you know doing a listing presentation and how you do it, or my listing presentation, the way I do it. So now it's like, okay, you got the listing. Now what? So first off, the one thing you got to know when you got the listing signed, are you putting the listing on the MLS right away? Very important, because there's a rule with our associations that says once you take a listing, you have to have it on the MLS within 48 hours, or you have to have a seller exclusion from listing on multiple listing, SELM, a sell. So once you get the listing signed, you've got to know, preferably you want a sell, because realistically there's a lot to do once you have a listing, right? It's not usually as easy as, oh, I got a listing signed and I'm going to go put it in the MLS, right? So so we're going to kind of go through step by step what we're doing. So as soon as you've got that listing, you've got it signed, right? As soon as you have it signed, actually, well, let's back up. You want to, there's a lot you want to go over with your sellers in getting it signed. Number one, when do they want the house on the market? And part of that's going to come from consulting with them, like what is the best time based on this, you know, what needs to be done. So which kind of leads me to, you know, a lot of this is do they need to bring cleaners in? Do they need to freshen up the yard? Do they need to declutter the house? Is it vacant? Does it need to be staged? And of course, the one thing you always want to make sure of, and a lot of this you're talking about prior to getting the listing signed, you're going to be going over this in your listing presentation typically. But once it's signed, you've got to, you know, usually at the signing table, I'm going through a timeline of all these things and who's responsible for what. So again, it's decluttering, moving out, staging, cleaning, you know, any rehab they're going to be doing, whether they're going to be getting the, you know, putting in new floors, doing any paint or touch-up paint, inspections. Inspections is a big one. You want to get inspections before you put it on the market. Mainly pest, home, roof. Those are the three that California Association of Realtors deems most important in the sale of a home. And the home inspection is more of an informational report. Really, you're going to find a lot of things and costs in your pest inspection and your roof inspection if there's going to be any. So just having that up front and then discussing with the sellers, hey, we're going to take care of this and get, you know, clear section 1 and a clear roof, or are we just going to put it in our disclosure packet and let that be for the sellers to work out, or the potential buyers to work out in their offer. And then also too, again, so the time frames and all that, and next steps. You're also going to want to talk about those next steps. There's a couple things that are going to happen. One is, along with all this, and by the way, you can see this on our WR ACES University. So if you ever want to go back through, and I'll actually probably be putting this in a timed outline so that you can also, there'll be like an attachment on the university so that people can grab it and actually not have to write it all down, although it's good to write it down because it sticks better. But so anyway, next steps would be talking about ordering a sign. You know, when does that happen? When are the pictures going to be taken? When professional pictures. You never want to put a listing on without professional pictures. As like, in my opinion, the kiss of death. We all kind of, those of us who've been in the business a while, whenever we're going online or we're going through the MLS and we see bad pictures, we kind of joke. Or a listing that hits the MLS without pictures, even worse. And do you know, Lisa or Francine, do you know why that's a bad thing? Somebody chime in. All on you.
Because
I,
that is, oh,
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Nope, Gina Marie's not an agent. She can chime in and know afterwards. I want to hear from an agent.
I mean,
Go
I
ahead,
would
Lisa.
just go professional because they're gonna get the right angles and the right lighting and make sure that it shows well to bring in more attention. I mean, there was one that I went through on MLS and it was horrible pictures and it deterred me to even want to really go look at it.
Correct. Correct. Absolutely. That's one reason. So that's the main reason you want professional pictures taken. Do you know why you want to make sure you have all that in line, ready to go and uploaded before you make your listing active on the MLS? Have you ever pulled up the MLS? There's no pictures, and in the comments it says professional pictures coming soon.
Mm.
Francine, you want to take a guess at why that is, like, in my opinion, the biggest no-no of all? Oh, you got to unpause yourself, Francine, or unmute. You're still muted. I don't know what's going on with your computer, Francine, but you're still muted. So I'll just tell you. As soon as you make it active, it literally syndicates to every website, including Zillow and Realtor.com, the two biggest ones, right? And if there's no pictures, what do you think is going to happen? People are on to the next. So then you go and upload them the next day. What happens?
They don't get to see the pictures.
That's right. Because not only does it syndicate out, it also drips out to anybody on a search with any of those search engines or with an agent. It'll drip to them, and it won't drip to them a second time. You only get, well, my saying is, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So by virtue of not doing it right and not launching it right, you lost. You're saying, I'm not a professional agent, and you just did your client one of the biggest disservices, in my opinion. So very important that everything I'm telling you and going through is all the steps. Like I said, I have a listing, now what? And that's just super duper important. So we went through kind of a recap of to-dos. Again, cleaning, yard, windows. Windows is a pet peeve of mine. I always like to see clean windows because I think that's a detraction. Inspections, staging, pictures, as well as, is there a certain day of the week you should make a listing active? There is, by the way. Well,
Yeah.
there are days that are better than not. So care to take a guess, Lisa?
I heard rumors Thursdays.
Yes.
Okay.
Thursday is the best day. You know what's funny is I had been doing that for, I can't even tell you how long, just because I always felt like, I could, because I've been probably doing this for so long, and I list a lot of houses. I noticed patterns, right? And I noticed more activity and better activity on a Thursday. And one day I'm like, you know what? I'm preaching this. I wonder if there's any truth to this. So I looked it up, and sure enough, you can find on the National Association of Realtors, they'll have statistical data to back that up. My theory was always, and I didn't look up theory behind it, but my theory was always, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday and Tuesday, people are buried in work, right? They're just getting into their work week. Their emails are full. They're running amok. They're doing things. Wednesday's kind of like hump day. Thursday, they're caught up on everything. They're caught up on their emails. No worry, Francine. Thanks for letting me know. They by Thursdays, they're starting to, when stuff drips out, it's on the top of their email. It's not buried. It doesn't get buried. They're looking to the weekend and what they're going to do and what they're going to see. Friday is almost a little too late. They're already almost into their weekend already. And, you'll still get, you'll still get a little bit of people catching it on, agents catching it on the weekend. But as far as people, when it drips out, Thursday is the best day to have it drip out to everyone and hit everyone. National statistical fact. So yeah, Thursdays. Now, one thing I did want to talk about in Now What is one thing that's kind of nice is there's a category in our MLS called Coming Soon. And what that allows you to do is that allows you to put the house on the market for up to 30 days in that status. You can't go more than 30 days according to MLS rules. Ask me how I know. I got fined. I had an agent call me up and say, hey, when's this going to be live? It's been like coming soon for like 67 days. How did you get away with that? I'm like, what do you mean? How did I get away with it? I haven't made it active yet. They're like, well, yeah, but you're not supposed to do that for more than 30 days. I'm like, I don't know where you heard that. And then like literally the next day I get a letter from the board and they literally went in and took it down. They like eliminated it. So coming soon status, two things that it does. One, it doesn't syndicate out in coming soon status. So the general public does not see it on the websites. Only agents with MLS access can see it. So that can be a good thing or a bad thing. There's a reason for that, and I'll explain it. The other reason that that's a good category is you're not burning days on market, because as soon as you go from coming soon status and you make it active and live, your days on market start from 0 there. And then it syndicates out. So that's a good thing. What would be one of the reasons for putting it as coming soon so only realtors can see it? By the way, Francine can't unmute herself, so I guess when I'm asking that question, I'm looking at you, Lisa.
Francine, you owe me lunch, honey.
And don't feel, if you don't know the answer, you don't want to take a shot. I don't want you feeling on the spot.
No worries.
Because Gina Marie loves to answer questions like she's an agent.
I would just think if you put it on coming soon, you can start driving up some attention and feel out what kind of activity you're going to have when you do push it live. Perfect. I'll stop there.
Perfect. Well, no, keep going.
Well, and I witnessed that firsthand on Melissa's, that I went out and did the open houses with her. It was in coming soon status, and we had so much activity that it kind of forced her to push it to active because people already wanted to start writing offers on it.
It gives you a good gauge of what the activity is with realtors, right? Because I mean, that's your largest pool of people is realtors with clients. And you'll get a good gauge. Also, too, depending on if you have good comps or not good comps, like if you're really having troubles with the price or the people want to push the price, it's a good way to push it and then give them feedback, right? Like, hey, I'm not getting any calls. There's no activity. There's on your listing, there's an agent and client counter that shows how many clicks it gets. So you can gauge by that. So that's a perfect answer, Lisa, by the way. Perfect answer. So let's see. Let me just go through going down through this. So we talked about, okay. So we've really talked about a lot of that. So you've done most of that. You've talked all that through. You've got a timeline. You've talked it all over with your sellers. You've got this signed listing agreement. You come back to the office. What's the first thing you should do?
We have to turn that listing, well, once we go live on MLS, right? Or we put in MLS, do we have to send that over to Suzanne or our TC?
You should send that over to the TC as soon as you get it signed. And they'll upload it to SkySlope typically. They will, depending on who your TC is, they will also start compiling all the disclosures. They will send an email out to your your sellers introducing themselves, letting them know that, hey, I'm the TC, I'm going to be handling the back end of this. I'm going to be sending you out a disclosure packet to fill out. If you have any questions on it, you should reach out to Lisa. And is you're going to want those disclosures filled out prior to going on the MLS so that you can have a disclosure link that in theory would have all the disclosures, all the reports, and any other pertinent information. Like, you can order the NHD ahead of time, the Natural Hazard Zone Disclosure Report, as that is typically a seller paid item, as well as open a pre-escrow so you have the preliminary title report in there. So now what you're really doing is you're creating a full package, which makes the whole negotiating and offer process much easier in theory, because you're taking out a whole element of surprise. Back in the day out here in the Wild West, the way it was done is it was just assumed that disclosures were filled out after you went into contract. It was assumed that the buyers were going to get the inspections. But what that did is it left these time frames where, okay, I agreed to sell you my house for this price, but do I really have a solid deal? Am I going to be renegotiating this? This disclosure packet, if done right, takes all of that guesswork away. So you negotiate once, you shorten up all your time frames so you have a more solid transaction. In theory. Make sense? Okay.
I have a question about that. Do you find that you get any pushback from the sellers on having the inspections done? Because they pay for that, right?
Yep, 100%. Yeah,
how would you advise an agent to sell that to their client, or
shadow a seasoned agent on a listing presentation. It's an objection handler, and it's very simple. It's like, I always act a little surprised. You don't want to get inspections? I'm confused. Well, first off, I always recommend it up front, and I kind of in my presentation I go through them getting inspections and the reason for it. And the reason for it is so that we can hopefully eliminate inspection contingencies and also negotiate once. Because Mr. and Mrs. Seller, let's just take, for instance, you have a raised foundation here. So you have a crawl space and you have a lot of exposed wood, potential moisture. What if there is a crack in the foundation, or there's rotted beams underneath, floor joists that, we don't know about? And then they do their inspections after the fact, and they come to you now. And when they get that initial bid, it could say, let's just say it's $20,000 worth of work. Well, guess what? Your deal just went south, or they're trying to renegotiate your deal or get you to fix that. And now we're under timelines of closing a transaction. So you're probably going to be stuck with that person doing the work, which is going to be about double what you could do if you had time and knew ahead of time and could shop it around. Really simple. Like this, look at it as, yes, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm asking you to spend $1,000 on inspections up front. Look at it as an insurance policy, and look at it as a better price for your house, because guess what? Let's say there's $20,000 worth of work. You may not even have to pay for that, but what if you could go get an estimate from somebody else for $10,000, put it in your disclosure package. Now you're only negotiating on $10,000 instead of 20. And maybe, and sometimes it's trivial things. And I'll share this with you. When somebody's looking at disclosures, they're not looking at them. What I have found to be true is, unless it's a engineer type, most of the time they're breezing through disclosures, they're reading the reports. They're not looking at them as in depth as they would if they're standing there with the inspector, right? So it's not quite sinking in because they're still excited about buying this house, right? So it's not as big of a deal. So it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to offer a lesser price. Where if you go into contract at that same price, then they find out about these things, depending on what kind of a market it is, you're going to be retrading that. Yes, Gina Marie.
So do you have the clients with you then at the inspection?
Pre-inspections when the sellers are doing them?
Mm-hmm.
Well, myself or them have to provide access, so they can be, yeah. I mean, they don't have to be. It's not as crucial for them to be. I always like the sellers to be there. I always like the inspectors to be able to go over with the sellers what is wrong, because a lot of times on those inspection reports, you see these old diagrams with A, B, C, and it's like, okay, you're looking going, okay, where's that? Where is it? What is it? So it's a lot nicer when, you know, and I also feel, by the way, we get paid pretty well for what we do. We work our asses off, make no mistake about it. We earn every bit of it. But for me, part of earning my pay is going to the dang inspections and understanding what's going on with the properties I'm listing or the buyers I'm representing. FYI. Good question.
But do you also feel that having the seller there to review the inspector's findings at the end will help eliminate the seller being taken back and attacking us saying, that's not wrong with my house? What do you mean that's wrong with my house? That inspector doesn't know what he's talking about, where they can
100%.
actually be there and learn hands-on like we are.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So now let's back up because I missed one little step when you're there getting the contract signed is get the key. And do your Avid. Those are two things you want to do while you're there getting the listing agreement and getting the listing. Because you're number one, getting the key, you're just saving yourself time from running back and forth and having to try and coordinate getting the key again. Number two, which by the way, I do all the time. I forget that step many times. Like, crap, did it again. My TC knows this. I'm notorious for forgetting to do the dang Avid, which makes me have to go back out again. And it's just, it's inefficient. It's inefficiency on my part, just because I get in such a hurry and I'm like probably too excited that I get the listing and I'm just like, I'm down going on to the next thing. Also, though, I also had a assistant. Plug your ears, Suzanne. Never mind. I won't even say it. I won't even say it on here. I had an assistant that used to do them all for me. So they were licensed though. So I don't anymore. I do them myself. And so I forget to do them in an efficient way. So that you have all that. After you leave and you've discussed all this, you've done all this, you've given all this to your TC, then you're going to want to do a recap email to your sellers. Just recapping the time frames and dates. You know, when things are going to get done, who's going to be responsible for doing them, when you plan on putting it as a coming soon, when you plan on putting it fully active on the market. And depending on the price point and depending on your price point, the market and your marketing strategy, you also want to discuss and put in there, when do you plan on putting it on Broker's Tour? When do you plan on looking at offers? Are you going to review them as they come in, or are you going to have an offer date? If you have a house that's in the $500,000 to $600,000 range, probably going to go pretty quick, and you're probably pretty safe doing an offer date. My opinion is, depending on the market, I like to put a house on, based depending on the price point. I like to put a house on the market on a Thursday, and I like to make an offer due date of 12 days later, meaning on a Tuesday. I like it to get 2 full weekends. I always put a little disclaimer in the confidential marks that says seller reserves the right to take a strong preemptive offer, which covers my butt. Because if somebody comes along with some of the risks you run on doing that, like if you put a hard date and it's out there, and then you take an offer without that disclaimer, and all of a sudden it's off the market, you're going to piss some realtors off potentially, and you're going to tarnish your reputation a little bit as not being real ethical, right? Because they might have had clients and thought they had time. Where if you put that disclaimer, it puts a little more sense of urgency on it and gives you that out, right? Nobody can say, well, you said you had an offer date. Now, I also said they reserve the right to take an offer before that. Because sometimes, you don't want to, here's one of the risks you run is putting an offer date. Okay. You want to, the balance is working in the best interest of your client and getting them the most money, but also getting them a good deal that's going to close. And, do you really want 50 offers? No, I just want a couple good ones. 50 offers is going to make more work for me, and it's going to make me have to upset a lot of people that I'd rather not do. So just think about that one. And by the way, Lisa, Francine, everyone in the office is available or will, help you talk anything through and review anything anytime, especially me. I love looking at that. That's like probably one of my superpowers is marketing and negotiating. Straight up. Those are my two superpowers in real estate. I love the marketing aspect. I love the negotiating aspect because negotiating for me is not about necessarily killing the other person. It's about creating a win-win for everybody. And that's going to, very effortlessly get it across the finish line for everyone concerned. So that's kind of what it's all about. But anyway, before I get too off track on that, that's what we were talking about. We were talking about offer dates and just how you do it. If you've got a good client, you can also piss a lot of people off by holding off too long and chase buyers away because they're like, I don't want to play that game. Right? You just want a fair offer. So you really got to look at your price point, know your market, and know what your sellers are trying to achieve. And a lot of times it comes down to, and Suzanne will know this, and I definitely know this, it comes down to the agent too. There's agents we want to work with, and there's agents we know that we don't want to work with. So for a multitude of reasons, by the way. All right, let's go through this. So now that let's see, so you've gotten the key, you've organized everything everything that's going to be done, all the next steps, as far as when the picks are going to be done, the tour, the open house, any open houses that you're going to do. You want to talk about that up front. If they want open houses, if you even want to do open houses, here's the dialogue I have with my clients, just so you know. I always say, because I don't want to get blindsided later by them, so I talk about it. It's like, I hope, are you interested in open houses? Most of the time they say no. I'm like, good, because I don't do open houses. But if they say yes, I said, okay, well, I don't do open houses. I think, this is my personal opinion. So please don't say this if you don't mean it. I just explained to them, if you really feel strongly about open houses, I can have those set up for you. It will not be me hosting the open house. It will be another great partner of mine in my office. Does that make sense? Just because I'm not going to do open houses. But if they really want them and feel strongly about them, and some people do. I don't, and that's a whole nother class as to why. I would rather be doing something else and taking a Zillow call than setting up open house signs and hoping that somebody comes through.
Okay, but how do you sell it to your clients? You don't tell them that, right? You don't say, hey, well, I'd rather be doing other things.
No, I tell them the statistical data on open houses. I said, first off, do you really want people coming through your house that I have no idea who they are? They're not represented by an agent, a licensed agent, and you don't even know if they're qualified to be in their house. For all you know, they could be scamming your house. That's my opinion. Less than 1% of houses are sold by open houses. The big reason for an open house is for agents to get potential buyers and maybe potential sellers in the area. That's really what an open house is good for. Simple as that. For me. And that's how I sell it. I would rather be out doing something else and picking up a Zillow call because I know that statistical data. So I have to look at, I know that sales is a numbers game. What's in the best interest of the seller? What's in the best interest of my time? Really quite simple for me. But again, that's how I sell it. Yeah. Good questions. Gosh, for someone who's not a real estate agent, you ask a lot of good questions.
I ask the stuff that nobody wants to say. No, I can get away.
Yeah, you're all right. So far we've gotten up to the point where we've done just about everything. Does anybody care to take a quick stab at one thing that we forgot? Which, by the way, I forgot about on the last one I did. Suzanne will know exactly what it is.
Flyers.
Nope.
I didn't hear your question.
So in everything we've talked about so far up to this point, which is just about everything, what's the one thing we forgot?
listing agreement?
No, we've already got
well,
that's how we started this class. We have the listing agreement.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
I was just gonna say, I also do a property profile and I do a seller's mock net sheet so that the seller can kind of see if we sold your house for the projected list price, here's what you'll net. That way they have a good idea of all the charges that come to play for them as a seller. And then, with the commissions and the natural hazard report and all these other things that they pay for, kind of like, here's what you should walk away with. But obviously the prices could change. You could get a lot more than that.
I always err on the side of caution and the low side of what I think. And I'll usually bring one of those in a listing presentation. And if I got a price range, I'll do one on the low side in the middle and in the median. So great point, Suzanne. I actually forgot about that. That's not one of the things I was actually referring to. You just had to order something for me last week.
Signs, the sign and
The sign. Yeah,
photography
absolutely.
and media.
Are you going to be putting up a sign? And do they want a sign? And then getting that ordered and deciding when the time frame on when that's going to go up as well, because that's a good thing to put in your email to the seller, sign to go up on this date. So it is something that I forgot.
When
Which
do
I
you
love.
recommend putting up a sign? Is there a specific time that you recommend?
You know what? Every property is different. I'll tell you this. Reserve. I don't have a sign up in reserve. Why? People with that kind of money are usually a little more private. Number one, it's in a gated community of only 82 homes. So are people really and it's at the very end of a quarter. People really driving by? No. So is it going to gain, a sign can, if it's on a very busy, not busy street, but if it's in a very good location, you may want to sign, because that is a way to draw, that's more advertising, right? I don't need advertising on reserve. I mail there. I didn't put one on EULA till the last minute. And I'll tell you what, I don't necessarily, 61 EULA is tucked all the way back on a private road, almost the last house. Is anybody gonna be driving by that? Is that gonna get any kind of advertising that way? No. Why would I put a sign up?
For your ego?
Nope. I'm over my ego. I left that a long time ago with the billboards and I don't need signs. I could
So
care less
people
about
can
signs.
find the house when they go.
Yes, it's very rural, and I want people to, when they turn the corner, go instead of going like, I think it's that house. I want an agent to be able to go right to that house. How many of you, when you're out showing houses, you're like, there's no sign, you're like, which house is it? It sucks, right? You want to be able to just pull up right to it and know that's the house. Good guess. That was very good, Gina Marie. Yeah, I want people to know, without a doubt, here's the house. That's the only reason. No ego. I could just say for sale and not even have my picture on it for all I care. But, my friends do like to go find my signs and do funny things with them and make fun of me and stuff. So,
So
there is that aspect.
do you think that, like, for instance, on Reserve, it's a gated community, but
Yeah.
you love other clients there? Would there be an advantage to have a sign up so that the neighbors could go, oh, I wonder what they're getting, kind of draw some attention just in that neighborhood?
Let me ask you a question. Do you think that the neighbors in that neighborhood know that house is for sale without a sign? In a small neighborhood like that? Yep. I was stopped in the gym before I even put it on the market. So you're listing my neighbor's house, I see. Yes, I am. And for me in there, it would be purely ego. I really don't. Yeah. It's at the very end, and I'm there all the time. It could be a marketing ploy, absolutely, to really bring more attention to the fact that I'm listing it there. But what happens if it's an epic fail? I would rather, I like to be a little more, you've learned this about me, Gina Marie. There was a point in time where, I wanted as much attention as I could get. Now I really don't. I want the right kind of attention. I'd rather the people seek me out or just kind of come up in conversation. Right. And I personally show that house every time. So I've talked to almost every neighbor because I'm hanging out there all the time, and I've had great conversations, and it really allows it from a different standpoint. And actually I had another agent, not even with our organization, text me like, hey, did something happen to your sign on reserve? I'm like, never had one on reserve, but it brings up conversations, right? So anyway, so we talked about deciding if there's an offer date or as received. Oh, another good one. When you get the listing agreement signed, who's going to be the contact for showing?
Mhm.
Who's going to be the contact? And do they need time to get out of the house, to get the dog put away? If it's a price point, I'll tell you, like if it's a price point that's like between $500 and $600, and you know you're gonna have a lot of activity, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you may want to just go away for the weekend because you want the house as easy to show as possible. That's what you really want for a sale. And then also at the same time, going over the do's and don'ts, which again, I'll compile this into a nice list. I was going to have that, and then I'm realizing I probably should have. So we can have that for you guys. Some of the do's and don'ts. First off, what's the first? Well, be gone, go away. Do you know how uncomfortable it is for a seller or a buyer to look at a home when the seller's hanging out or there to greet them or wants to show them all the great features and why they love this house? Yep. I got to tell you, I am so adamant about that. And by the way, I've turned down listings for reasons like this, where people say, well, no, I don't want anybody in my house without me here. I'm not the right person for you to work with because you're just going to get in the way of the sale. You're literally going to hurt your house selling. You know how many times I've had back in the day, sellers calling me, Wes, you need to follow up these people who are just here. They said they love my house. Jack, of course they said they love your house. You asked them. What are they going to do? Say, no, not for us. Most people, path of least resistance, they're going to tell you what you want to hear so they can, they avoid confrontation. Like literally. You want to make sure the sellers are gone. You want to make sure they leave, the blinds are open, all the lights are on, that they clean up and put their dirty clothes away and their toothbrushes away. I know it's silly stuff, but you got to review this. You'd be surprised how many people don't do this. It's ridiculous. By the way, I have several listings that are vacant. I have me as a showing contact. I could just say vacant, go. I don't. And it's a little inconvenient for me, but do you know why I want them to call me? What, Suzanne?
Control.
So you can
have
turn on all the
control,
lights.
you know who's going. You have
A little bit of that. It's a little bit of control. It's a little bit annoying, but more than anything, I'm going to run over there and make sure all the lights are on and all the blinds are open. And then I'm going to go back behind them and make sure everything's turned off. It's just an extra mile I go for my clients. These are all, I do most of my business with very personal friends and past clients. And I am going to go the extra mile for them. And I think that that's a service that we all should provide. Right? I got to tell you, as an agent, well, now we're getting off track a little bit, and that's okay. As a buyer's agent, I would expect any buyer's agent to be at that first house 20 to 30 minutes before their buyer gets there, so that you can go in and turn on all the lights and open all the blinds and make sure that house shows its best. We want to sell a house, not deter people from buying a house. Model homes, all the windows. There's no window coverings. All the lights are on. Why? It shows better. Light. People love light. For me, there's nothing worse as an agent than walking in and having to run ahead of my client, trying to get all the lights on and open all the things and then try to go behind them and shut it all. And usually when I'm showing, I'll get there first. I only want to show a couple homes so I can hopefully have all this dialed in. And then all after I'm done, I'll go back to the house and then turn everything off. Not while they're there. I literally will. Like, I want to make the most amazing experience for a buyer because I want them to buy a house.
So in the case of, like, let's say you're going on a Zillow call and you ask them, is there any other homes you want to see? And they go, yeah, if you find something else, let's go. You can go ahead 20 minutes ahead for the first home. How do you handle the other ones after that?
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, I try to go on there and know which houses I'm showing, whether they're vacant or not vacant. you know, if they're all vacant, I can go to all of them ahead of time and just let the agent know, hey, are there any other showings around the time I'm doing it? I'm just gonna go by and get all the lights on and set and ready for me to show. You know, it's just, again, making it the best experience because I want to sell a home. I don't want to just be out opening doors. Sorry, I'm in the business of selling homes, not of free tours and opening doors, just for that, because I got nothing better to do. I got a lot better to do. So I want to sell a friggin' home. I'm going to make it to where I could have the best chance at selling that home. Oh, the other thing too, one last thing. It's really cold right now, isn't it? In July, what's it going to be? Really freaking hot. Now, if you have a vacant home, do you think that, what do you think is going to happen in a potential buyer's mind? They walk into a house and it's 39 degrees in that house when they walk in. Are they feeling warm and fuzzy about that house? No, it's freaking cold and they just want to run through it and get out. Same thing if it's a stifling hot and it's 93 degrees in the house when you open the door. It's like, oh, it's a sauna. It's unbearable. You want to make sure that you talk with the people. And, you know, in the wintertime, a good temperature is maybe 62. It's not cold, but it's certainly not warm, right? But it's not unbearable. And same in the summer, like 70, you know, 70, I usually go 76, 77 degrees. Sometimes people kind of joke like, oh my gosh, I have to leave my house at that temperature all the time. It's going to cost me a fortune. Do you want to sell your house? Do you want the best price for your house? Make it comfortable. Make it to when the buyers come in, they can see themselves being here. They feel comfortable. That's the best thing you can give them.
Just went on broker's tour today, toured 2 of the same models. And one of them for their open house had the door wide open. And it was freezing inside the house. And remember, Francine, we were like, I mean, it does affect your overall experience in that house.
It does. It really is creating an experience. These are things that nobody teaches you. You know, you would think it's common sense, but most of us don't think about it. Like, and sometimes I forget some of these details. And then afterwards I went, oh crap, you know, when I walk in and it's cold, like, my bad. I know I forgot to tell them about it. You know, the other day I would, yeah, EULA. I'm like, okay, you guys are leaving. It's going to be vacant. I'm going to be setting the temperature in this house at this. And, you know, one of them's about comfort. The other one's like about the numbers. He's like, she was laughing. She goes, oh, Dale's going to freak out. I'm like, sorry, Dale. and look, I make fun of him, right? Like, sorry, Dale, you want to sell a house, right? Well, you know, we're going to have to keep the temperature a little warm in here because it's freaking cold outside. You know, and you can lay around here and bundle up and be in your blankets. That's great. But potential buyers aren't coming here wrapped up in blankets wanting to feel how cold your house is. Let's see. Okay, so gosh, we're almost through this. So we talked about well, okay, so we've got everything with our TC, we've done our Avid, we've lined them out with everything. Also, you know, deciding if they're going to order inspections and stuff, or we are, and how that's all going to play out. And then you're going to want to, let's see, what's probably the next thing? Getting lock boxes on there. So you got, remember I told you when you're there, getting before you leave with that signed offer, getting a key in hand. I always head over to Ace first thing and get 2 copies made. And I let them know I'm going to do that, by the way, because I don't want them freaking out like, what's up? And so I have a total of 3 keys for the house. And then I'm going to put a Supra box on it and a contractor box on it, or a combo box. Anybody know why?
Just in case
ahead,
the
Susie.
Supra doesn't work.
That is one reason. Yes, there's actually 2 reasons. In case go
Sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Because if we need any work to be done, they don't have access to Supra lock boxes.
Correct.
Hence
Those
why
are
it's
2.
called contractor lock box.
Bingo. Two main reasons. And by the way, sometimes you'd be surprised. I can't tell you, it's happened more times than not that I've gotten this call. And by the way, I've also been the one making the call. Hey, there's no key in the lockbox. or I can't get into the lockbox. You're right. Sometimes realtors forget, and they take the key with them, or they had it in their pocket, or they lose it. And I don't want to be running all over the place trying to chase down, like calling the sellers and I would say, hey, I need another key, and that's not a good way to do it. So, and then I also keep an extra key on my person just in case. Number one, so that when I go over there, I don't have to fiddle with the lockbox. And number two, in case a key does get lost, I've got an extra one. And I'm not running to Ace Hardware again to make another copy.
In case the showing agent takes it home.
Been there, done that. Been on both sides of it. I'm telling you, it happens. You get rushed, you get distracted, whatever. If you've been in this long enough, it's going to happen. Almost guarantee it. All right. So silly little thing. Where's the best place to put these lock boxes?
Oh, that's right. Francine's muted, so it's on me.
or Jean Marie or Suzanne.
Everything's been on the gas meter majority of the time that I've been going out. And I have to say, it's a little bit frustrating when it's pouring rain and there's nothing over the gas meter and we're now drenched trying to get into the house. So could you enlighten me on why that's picked?
Okay. Number one, you usually don't like to put them on the door handle for a couple reasons. One is it shouts to everybody that there's a lockbox there, and potentially the house could be vacant, and anybody scoping out a neighborhood, it's real easy to take a sledgehammer and whack that lockbox and take the whole handle off, and they know the house is vacant. Probably it just draws too much attention. But also too, usually our boxes are kind of big and clunky, and you can't really. And so when you're opening and closing, it dings the door jambs, and you got to fiddle with it too much. And so the gas meter, the reason for the gas meter is it's typically in a cemented place. Because some people will put them on a hose bib behind a bush in the mud. No, that's a no. Never put them near a bush or over a bush, because what happens sometimes? Yep, Suzanne, the key falls and then you're like, crap, gone. Ask her how she knows. Ask me how I know. It's it's going to happen. If you do this long enough, it's going to happen. So really the gas meter is the best place because it's usually secure. Like on EULA, I actually had to buy a cable and put it on the railing, because there is no, the gas meters in the mud. They don't have a fancy spigot. It's just, and if it's just a regular spigot coming out of the wall, the lockbox will come right off it. By the way, it's being, sometimes you got to get a little creative. Let's see, man, you guys are doing good. Any questions so far? We've talked about always putting on the MLS on a Thursday, right? As it's coming soon, not as big of a deal because it's not dripping out, right? But active, you always want to put it on active on a Thursday. In your email too, you want to set the expectation for communication. And by that, I mean, I personally, I tell my clients, I will check in with you every Monday or Tuesday. Well, actually, I usually say Tuesday, and I usually check in with them on Monday. So that way I am exceeding expectations, right? And I give myself that buffer, because Mondays can sometimes get away from me. But I let them know that they're going to hear from me every Tuesday to review what's going on with their listing, more if needed. And usually I'll check in with them Thursday or Friday anyway, just to say, hey, nothing's happened. Here's what I'm kind of forecasting and seeing for the weekend. And it makes for a very nice week. As you'll notice, I've been sitting here. Oh, yeah, I do have quite a few missed calls. Never mind. No, just a Zillow. Oops. And my phone turned off so I can be present with you guys. But yeah, you want to set the expectation for communication. Number one, how often you're going to communicate. And then asking them, what's the best form of communication? Typically, I call them, but then I also email them with anything that we talked about, even if it was nothing. Hey guys, also just wanted to email you. Nothing going on. but the reason you do both is so that you always have a paper trail, right? Like, hey, we talked about, just to verify, we talked about lowering the price to this. Yep. Conversations are dangerous. I could blow back on you pretty quick. If they get upset, people get very forgetful. So I always just reiterate my conversations in a quick email. It's pretty simple to do. And your TC sent out the disclosure packet. You've already done your Avid. Now you're getting ready to put on the MLS. You enter everything into the MLS before you hit active. What should you do?
Spell check.
Close, very close. You should send it so that you should put save as partial listing and send it to the seller for their review.
What do? You save it as what?
Partial listing. Jeff, when you get your first listing, Jeff will go, he'll be right there with you, entering it, and you'll save it as a partial listing. You'll email it to, usually you want to do it a day early if possible. That way you allow time for them to look at it, not rushed. So you usually want to like input it on a Wednesday, save it as a partial, send it out to them, give them the evening or the next morning to check it over, send it back with any corrections or modifications. And then you make it live Thursday, late morning, early afternoon. But pretty important. You know, a lot of times I usually ask the sellers, by the way, can you send me a list of all the key points you want to make sure I cover off, right? Because they know why they love the house. I can walk through it. I can probably gather most of it, but sometimes there's things that they know that they love about the house. And if they love that about the house, somebody else will, right? And I'm kind of neutral. I'm not here to fall in love with your house. So I'm not looking to buy a house. I'm very practical. So, and you want to tap into that emotion. So, and I've had several, my last two clients, Rudder and Reserve, both of them wrote their own public remarks. Perfect. One less thing I got to do, and they're going to be happy, right? So, you know, letting them sending you a list of all the amenities and what they love, and then, you know, again, having them put eyes on it before you, because and this has happened to me. It's like there's nothing worse than all of a sudden, believe me, they're probably going to see it as soon as you hit active. It's probably dripping to them too, and then they're calling, going, Wes, what the heck? Ah, crap. I'll get on it right now. Proactive, best way to be, you guys. Yes, Gina Marie. So patiently waiting with her hand up, and I know it must be killing her.
I just looked it up. Okay, so I have a question for you. We have an agent that has a house that was listed, and she has been struggling with them letting her show the house. How do you address something like that? For instance, she's already moved into the house. Pardon me?
Fire myself.
Yeah.
Simple as that. I'm not attached to an outcome. I don't need a headache. By the way, I've talked to her. She tried to fire herself. Usually that solves it, because they're like, no. And they finally, you know, they're going to push as much as they can. They're like, you know, we're all humans. We're all like kids sometimes. We're going to push and see how much we can get away with. And in this case, you know, I finally said, you know what, she's like, she's not letting me fire myself. Well, I don't think it's about them letting you, but if you're going to fall victim to that, I said, tell them, look, I'm going to cancel out your listing. I'm going to bring in the broker or a partner, and we're going to relist it under someone else's name. I'll be the co-list, and we're going to do this, this, and this. But let somebody else be the bad guy and come in. That person's going to come in and say, you need to do this, this, and this. And believe me, if they don't, that person will be like, sorry, we're out of here. You know, some people are under the you know, and I saw this early on in my career. Agents think if they have a listing, they have business. If you have a listing that is saleable, priced right with cooperative sellers, you have business, you have a listing, you have a potential sale. If you have an improperly priced listing, a combative seller, you have a fucking liability that's going to make you lose sleep and bang your head against a brick wall. Don't do it. But people literally just say, well, I have a listing. No, you have a headache.
Yeah, and it also, I can see it ruining your reputation too, because she's had this, you know, she had a full price offer and they didn't take it. So is there anything that would help an agent to kind of set themselves up to have that not happen?
Come talk to an experienced agent or myself before getting into it and review the pricing strategy and the marketing strategy. Yeah. And come to me before it got to the point where it got to.
No, I mean with the client. Is there a way that you could say to your client, you know, is there something that you do in your presentation that keeps that from happening?
You can't control anybody. So no, I mean, my listing presentation's set up and I have enough scripts that I can combat anything. It doesn't mean I'm going to win that combat, if that makes sense. I can have all the tools in my tool belt in my bag. It doesn't mean, you know, there's only so much you can do. And you have to be, there's only so much you can do. You have to know what you're there to achieve. You have to understand what they're there to achieve. Then you have to be able to assess, am I the right person to achieve this for them? Because maybe you are, maybe you're not. I go into every deal, every transaction, every dealing and interaction with zero attachment to the outcome. Period. So it's very easy for me to walk away. I don't need your business. And I'm not attached if this deal falls, I'm not attached to whether this deal falls apart or not. I'm attached to what I can control in all of that. That's what I'm attached to. Am I doing everything and everything as right as I can in the eyes of the client and in their best interest? And if I am, the result's going to be what the result's going to be. I have no control over that. So therefore, I can't be attached to that. Because if it's out of my control, zero attachment. Not every deal is going to stick. Not every seller am I going to win. Not every presentation am I going to be the guy who gets it. And by the way, I used to be a little, maybe it was a little cocky. I used to walk into my listing presentations and okay, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. So at the end of this presentation, one of three things is going to happen. One, you're going to choose to list your house with me. Two, you're going to choose to not list your house with me. Or three, I'm going to choose not to take your listing. By the way, any one of those three things is okay. So can we begin? There you go. I want them to know it's all okay, but I may choose not to list their house. That's valid, by the way. But that was back in a time where I wasn't doing all my business now is mostly referral and repeat people I know. So I don't say that. But if I'm going in blind, I very well may say that.
So what red flags for you? What would that you would say after a listing presentation where you'd go, yeah, you know what? I don't think I'm a fit for you.
Most of the time it's just lack of motivation and unrealistic expectation on price and unwillingness to get inspections or do any work to aid in the sale of the house. Those are all red flags that I'm going to have an uphill battle.
Like in that previous example.
What's that?
Like in that previous example she was just talking about, those
100%.
Those sellers were not cleaning up. They weren't like getting their stuff out. They weren't, you know,
by the way,
getting the property ready. You can kind of tell when they're going to be difficult that way.
Yeah. I'll tell you a quick little story. I went on a listing presentation one time and it was a referral of a very, very good friend and client of mine. And they are very good friends. They chose not to go with me. And I wasn't upset at all. I was blown away when they listed with someone else and it sold right away with someone in our office because I was wrong, but that was okay. I was Wesley wrong. I didn't like the house was beautiful, kind of. It was in a very eclectic kind of way. And I let them know that this is a very specific house. It's not going to be for everybody. And that was the wrong thing to say. And I could read body language. I already knew I wasn't getting it. Like, you know, I'm like, your house is only worth this because of this, this, and this. And they took offense to my delivery style. I could read it in their body language. I ended up not getting it. It ended up, they ended up listing for what they wanted, which was not what I wanted. And I was okay with losing that. And I was okay with it selling right away because I didn't believe in it. So therefore, if I can't believe in the product I'm selling, why would I be the right guy? And there was no, I run into him after that. It was like, great job. You know, by the way, that was Gary and Karen's old next door neighbors behind Duchess. Yeah. Who they're going to live by in South Carolina. Funny as crap. But like literally their house, I'm like,
They had like random like elephant things or something. There was like some really,
oh my God. And like purple and green and the kids and to her, she thought this place was so amazing and everybody would want this. Why would anyone not want this? It's gorgeous. This is from this country and I bought this from this and this material was from, I'm like, who gives a shit? You know, like literally, I'm like, most buyers they're gonna come in here and redo it all. Nope, wrong. They just happened to find the right buyer. Well, first off, they happened to find an agent that was like, wow, you're right. This is amazing. And I can market it like this. And then the right buyer came along.
that's kind of like Sherry's house that she bought too. Like she bought the style that was the Tuscan and all of the paint on it in just bright color or, you know, the different colors. And she was like, oh, move-in ready. And
You never know what somebody's looking
painted
for.
the
But
walls gray and
I felt that would have been an uphill battle. Instead, you know, call it, in my opinion, it was lucky. There, and it is. There's somebody out there for that house. I just didn't want to go try and find it. That was a personal opinion. I felt I would have failed them. And I didn't want to do that to Gary and Karen. Instead, I got proved way wrong, but that's okay. Anyway, guys, somebody else is in line to use this conference room 4 minutes ago. So I'm going to wrap this up as we're 4 minutes past time. Thank you, everybody, so much. And we will see
Thank
y'all
you.
next time.